work. What does your generative process look like now?
Thank you. So I continue to work from this place of the body, but now I know a lot more about that intuition I had, 20 plus years ago, which is about a lot of my work. The theme of my work has to do with this making peace with my roots being in the air and making peace with belonging to many places. My parents, Guatemalan, left Guatemala in the 70s during the war there, and they went to Canada. And so I was born in Canada. And then we returned to Guatemala. There was still a war going on and came to LA. And so I grew up in Guatemala, Montreal, and here in LA. And so there's this, as I am becoming a theater maker, there is this eh, I'm still very curious. The pieces are more like they live in my body now, but for a while there was this pulling from different directions of feeling like I didn't belong. And then I came upon the work of Gloria Ansaldúa, who writes about Nepantla, which is a Nahuatl concept that means in between. And I came across this when I was in grad school in the UK, and it became this notion of in between as a very real place when all my work had to do with borders and broken identities and pieces here. And Nepantla now is the place where I create from, really feeling this messy place as the source of uh, stories that really need to be told. And so I I begin in that place. And even though they're all different shows, they're all exploring a different part of what it means to be whole in your body, what it means um to make peace with who you are. And a lot of my work, all of my work really blends physical theater. I also studied at Del Arte International, like Graham did. And so I really was empowered during my studies there in terms of I'm going to make theater wherever I am, from wherever I am. And so I think all my pieces are physical. And also have song. So there's this combination or integration of the voice and the body as um the main part, but something that's shifted that I can reflect on. When I first wrote my show at Cal Arts in the mid 90s, I realized now that even though that show was about my grandmother and my aunts and the women that came before them, I was creating solo work that in some ways was being translated for a white audience. And I can see now how it just breaks my heart because I'm still, I'm creating different frameworks now to create work where I don't feel like I have to translate. It was important that I wrote these shows in that way because I was still this like holding on to who I am, but I can see it so clearly now. And so the way my work has shifted now is that I'm I don't feel I have to translate it. I'm really honoring um the stories, and the places where the stories are coming from. So I think I'm answering the question.
Absolutely, absolutely, and stunningly so. Um, Lisa, how did you go from this 20 pages a week with your advisor to then a 2.5 hour show to what is uh, now Shakespeare and the Alchemy of Gender? What was that generative process?
Um, well, sometimes it's funding. There was a woman from a foundation called Gaia who saw an all-female As You Like It that I did. And she had her assistant call me and say, I run a foundation for women who are very tired, who spend their lives serving other women. And I see you and I want to give you a month off. And I'm going to give you a month in Provincetown in your own house, give you $600 a week, round trip airfare, and you don't have to do anything, you have to show anything. And that's where I wrote the play. I just had a month to myself in my own house with the computer through the benefactor of this person that I never met. And then my friend Margaret Van Zant, who runs the Provincetown Women's Theater Festival, said, I'll give you $1,000 if you do it for our opening season next week. So my hair went white because it was really a traumatic story, 2.5 hours without an intermission. And then eventually I cut it to 90 minutes. I got this $25,000 grant from Whittier College to bring in designers, and I did a background and projections and sets, and I did a 90-minute version. I was thinking I'll take it somewhere. Do you know what I mean? And then all these projections, and then I was invited to take it to the Stratford Festival after a scholars conference I went to. And they said it has to be 55 minutes if you want to do a piece of it. And that's when I hired Lori, and we worked together for a month or two and just redacted everything that wasn't my personal experience or my central question, which is my father's soul is not at rest. My father committed suicide after trying to right the wrongs the Nazis did by murdering his whole family, and that cycle of violence, which is represented so beautifully in Shakespeare all the time. I have played and played and played as I stepped into my father's shoes in all these male roles. So then I did it in Canada at 55 minutes, and then I took it through the United States and then to Europe. So I've done it at many of the Shakespeare festivals. I've done it in Europe. I was just asked to be the guest artistic director for the Verona Shakespeare International Fringe Festival because I did it there 2 years ago, and they felt so much. And then the Germans invited me to come and direct a show there because I did it there, and they felt so much. Do you know what I mean? And so I've been back to Bremen, and I've worked with the Turkish clowns and the black dancers from the Ivory Coast. And, you know, in Italy, my job will be to pick 5 productions from all over the world that are revolutionary and make one myself for the next couple of years. And I'm deconstructing a play-on version of Othello with Wayne T. Carr as Othello and myself as Iago and Kate Vogt as Amelia.
Oh my God.
All the white guys are going to be multimedia projections. And then there'll be 5 onstage actors that will tour it to Germany, to Italy, to Prague, and maybe.
How can I get in on this? You and Wayne and Katie Vogt? Oh,
right?
Stop it.
Because at this point, I'm like, what will bring me joy? What is community in Los Angeles now that I don't have a theater company? I want to work, and because I've done 8 or 9 of the play-on things, and because I work internationally and I see translation all the time now, I'm much less rigid than I was 20 years ago about the language art of it. Much more interested in the European poesy of the visual art, the poetry, and the intuitive dream work that they do on stage. And then to create interchange between all of the countries, because we go to Shakespeare Theater Association. I hope, Dawn Monique Williams, you might show up at that conference.
I will be there.
Okay,
I will be there.
Because, you know, Maddie's probably exhausted with it. But we've been trying to build international theater corridors for a long time. And Maddie's played at the Globe, and like we play all over the place, and it helps for empathy, it helps for listening, it helps for cultural differences. Like they never have Black actors play Othello in Europe. They think that's too easy, and they don't have any Black actors. So I think we're going to kill it just by doing a 90-minute deconstruction of American racism in an election year so horrific that everyone I know is practically reeling. I mean, there's so much to talk about. And the alternative would be just to go to Costa Rica and live in a hut and write for myself. But I still feel like I have just enough energy to keep working on it because it's exciting to see you guys who are my friends who I know and to meet Saida and just see how do we all continue? You know, what can we all do? But that is the flight of the solo show. You can meet thousands and thousands of people without having to coordinate dozens of people. And it's impossible right now to pay people at the level that they need to be paid. So
I hear that. Wow. Thank you all so much. As our time winds down, I want to say, Lisa, I would come and visit you in your hut in Costa Rica. But I want to, I thank you so much, Saida, for introducing me to this Nahuatl term about the in-between, because you all, the focus tonight was on solo work, but you are directors, you're writers, you're scholars, movers. Just a tremendous group to be in the company of tonight. So thank you all so much for giving of your time this evening. It was definitely an inspiration to me. So for our viewers, if you want to go ahead and show some love again in the chat, let our panelists know what you thought. We are going to conclude this portion of the evening and get Graham back out here before we launch into another set of participants. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
That was
Graham, how jealous are you?
I am so jealous you got to be in the room with those three amazing artists. I find myself just feeling so fortunate to be listening to this conversation tonight. It's exactly what I needed to hear at this moment. So big thanks to all of those artists. And please go see their work if their work comes to a place near you. They're just as amazing in real life as they are on your stream, I promise.
Well, Graham, you know what I always say, compersion, compersion, compersion. So be happy for me that I that I got to experience the joy of that conversation. And now we've got 3 more clips from our solo performance lab artists to share with you. We have coming up Linda Scaparrotti, Ipshita Furtado, and Bria Cooper.
I'm Linda Scaparrotti, and this is Swearing In. It was the biggest day of my life, what I had wanted since I was 10 years old, to be sworn in as an attorney in the rotunda of the Massachusetts Supreme Court. It seemed an impossibility, given my family and financial circumstances. No one had gone to college, many hadn't completed high school. Some still lived like they were in Italy in their enclaves, and the rest were in deep rural poverty. And yet, there I was, proudly standing in my black robe on those 200-year-old enduring Italian marble floors. Oh, the real prisms hung from the chandeliers. And yes, I was surrounded by the next generation of blue bloods. But I was there, and that's all that mattered. Suddenly, into the chambers came 2 guards who announced that we'd have to move the ceremony. And could Linda Scaparelli come with them, please? My God, I looked around, hoping they didn't mean me, Scaparrotti, but I followed them out, every step echoing with the pounding of my heart. And there, in the middle of the foyer, was my father. He looked so small in the cavernous space, surrounded by guards, wearing his one suit from Filene's bargain basement, his shoes polished, hat in hand. But he was screaming in a space where people spoke in hushed tones because of the reverberations. How dare you bring that whore here today? She did nothing for you, nothing. I did everything. No, Daddy, I didn't invite her. Dawn brought her. I did invite you, but you acted like you didn't care. You never said you were coming. Oh, I started off in dulcet tones, trying to plead the lion back into the cage. But he went around and around and just telling me all of the tragedies of his life and acting like I was responsible. I don't even know if I'm your father. I don't know that I'm any of your fathers. And you're old enough to know now you're the oldest. You can tell your sisters. Sisters. What are you talking about? You told me that I had to go live with my grandparents in the country and couldn't live with you because I was sickly, that I was going to die. Well, let me just tell you, growing up with them, I did almost die. And what have you done for me? You and Mother abandoned me. And you didn't support me. I've had 2 jobs since I was 14 years of age, always at the top of my class. I earned all my scholarships. I got myself here. So you can just go and fuck. I stopped myself as I watched the black robes parade by, now attorneys, going into the rotunda to meet their clapping families. I had missed the entire swearing-in ceremony, the very thing that I had worked so hard for in my life up till that moment. And my father turned then, didn't say another word, didn't apologize, and made his way through the phalanx of guards. And I watched him straighten up and wrap his scarf round his neck very carefully. Oh, against the cold, yes, but also against all that he had endured, all the pain that he had masked with anger. I watched him leave, never turn back, always moving forward, alone. And in that moment, I knew without a doubt that he was my father, or rather, that I was his daughter. I received my certificate of admission to the Massachusetts bar in the mail 2 weeks later.
Hi, Nisha. What do you have today? I'm so excited. Yeah? Going back to work is getting you excited? Oh my gosh, yes! Who would have thought? What do you miss most? Honestly, I've not really been processing the news very well lately. Like, I haven't seen anyone, and all these crazy headlines pop up on my phone, and all I have is no one to talk to who forms complete sentences. Was it your mom helping out? She's here visiting, right? From Chicago? No. I sent her home for bad behavior. Wait, what do you mean? Yeah, she kept forcing me to put these clothes on Kiki and they didn't fit. She was like, don't waste just because it's too small. I was so confused and she wouldn't listen to me. So you kicked your mom out of your house? Well, I got Jeff to do it. He just told her that we didn't need her help anymore. How about when you go back to work? It'll be fine. We're getting a sitter. Maybe they'll listen to my instructions. They definitely won't yell at me in another language I can't understand, so that's a win. That way I can make sure we get Kiki into a language immersion school. Important. Suraya, I can't have my kid not speaking my mother tongue. I just can't. I won't be able to forgive myself. But you don't speak it. It's okay. She'll be so proud. My mother will come and visit and yell at me, and then Kiki will fling it right back at her. It'll be the most majestic war between generations. I'll have devised the most spectacular match. Just wait. Your tiny little army. And I won't rest until I've conquered her spirit. I will prevail. I am mother. Is that still a thing? Am I using that correctly? You're gold. And then once I've vanquished the beast and saved myself from the prince, with my prince, we'll frolic in the forest and live happily ever after. The end. Yeah, you sound like you could use some adult conversation. My prince is Jeff in my might and shining armor. He dispelled the beast the first time, but now I shall finish her, and once and for all. Now who's behaving badly? Paloache, everything good? Sure. Kotobolo, what's been said? Well, where to begin? One complaints, Ache. Everyone's whining, huh? Can you blame them? Ano ang nakabala sa kanila? What's bothering them? Firstly, stop listening to everyone else who's not your children. We care so much. It feels horrible when you don't believe us. We're adults. We're trying to make good choices, and frankly, the choices you're making are weak given the options that exist. Oh, Baba, what else? Next, you've had your shot. You did this before. You don't get a vicarious do-over. You can't presume to know our pain and prescribe our medicine. They come and I feed them and I listen. I don't ask them to tell me. And every time I miss you. I hate that I can't blame you for feeling crummy. I remember doubting that you were proud of me when you were here, but I don't believe it anymore. You wouldn't have said I love you so many times if you weren't happy with how I turned out. Every time these little sandwiches get made, I can feel you next to me. I can hear you humming like you do, out of tune. I have no idea what song it is, but you're humming it, and it makes everything better. Thanks, Mom. Your love gets eaten all the time. They feel better than they get nourished. They remember to love you back.
Do you know what it's like to be prepared for the end of the world? I think I'm starting to. I used to make fun of doomsday people. I mean, like, not out loud, just in my head. Like, openly scoffing at people who order things with their zombie apocalypse kits on the internet. I mean, I once saw one being advertised at a once-in-a-lifetime investment of $799.95. With that type of money, you could just go on a trip or a spa day like a normal person to distract you from Zombieland doomsday hell. And maybe like not be so worried about zombies invading your home in the middle of the night and eating you. I mean, we have The Walking Dead for that apocalypse fantasy to play out, but in general, I just think we're way too comfortable being prepared for doomsday. But hell, maybe I'm just uncomfortable. I never thought about it too deeply and realized those kinds of people and their existential dread are literally everywhere. I mean, think about those questions you get when you have to do that dreaded icebreaker. It always goes something like this. If you were stranded on a deserted island, you could only bring 3 items. And somehow one of the rules is that you can't bring your phone, even though our phones are all glued to our hands nowadays. Anyways, and if you can only bring 3 items, what would you choose? And it's not like I'm an unprepared, oblivious person who doesn't believe in being prepared for things, but I just think my answers are more practical than most. For example, my hypothetical survival kit would include 1. Water purification tablets so that I won't drink the water on the first day, get sick, and die. 2. A flare gun so that I could get the heck out of there. And 3. I would bring a hatchet because it worked for that book Hatchet they made us all read in 4th grade, and I don't know if it worked for that kid, it could work for me. But I think my problem with questions like that is it's just the overall fetish for the end of the world. I don't think I understood its logic until now. My doomsday came on an unassuming Thursday afternoon, a FaceTime call with my parents, my siblings, and they asked the question, what will you do when we're gone? What will happen to B? Who's going to take care of him? My heart freezes. And not in the sad way that you must think. I actually think B and I would live a great life together. Twin and twin taking on the world. In that moment, I remember the promise I made myself at 7 that I would always protect him. Because the world is not always kind to kids with autism. And as his older sister, and maybe it's not a technicality, but I am older by 20 minutes, it counts. I always assumed that B would just live with me. And I was so confident in it that I told my mother so, as confident as a 2nd grader could be. But now, I feel my brain being hardboiled by one sentence, that one question. The assumption and inevitability that time will pass, and one day my siblings and I will be what's left to hold each other up. I'm totally floundering and floating on this pile of what ifs, because what if I have to face that day? And the truth is, what if is not what if, it's really when, it's really when. And what will I do when doomsday comes? And listen, I'm not some asshole. It isn't doomsday because one day I might have to take care of B. It's not about autism at all, really. I could care less about that part, which may sound crazy because, trust me, I care a lot. That's just not it. It's being completely unprepared for that event to happen, for this irreversible transition to take place. To face the truth that loss is inevitable. So the doomsday clock ticks on and on. Not exactly over my shoulder, still on my mind. You know what? Maybe everyone else is right. Perhaps it's time to get a survival kit of my own. Do you think this bag is big enough?
Wow, wow, wow. I'm such a proud mama right now, Graham.
These pieces, I mean, after just 3 weeks of generation, these pieces started to come to life, and it is so cool to see them continue to grow in these performances. Let's get some love in the chat for these last 3 pieces, and we're at the end of our time, so some love in the chat for the whole evening. I have to say, that conversation with those panelists, I'm going to be thinking about that for a long time. And maybe this is a cool moment to let our audience know who's been watching live that if you want to watch it again or share it with your friends, you can. It'll be archived there at both the Facebook Live and the YouTube channel. So you can definitely share this with other people or go back and check out moments that you want to hear again.
And we definitely want to give out some special thanks here, Graham. We definitely want to thank the amazing folks behind the scenes at Crowded Fire. A special shout out to Lee, Rondon David, and Riley Allison. Riley was behind the scenes all night. You never saw them, but they were there keeping the stream moving. And we hope people will join us again on Thursday. Entirely new program, but the same place. So where you tuned in tonight, you can tune in again at Thursday at the same time. And we'll be joined by a different panel made up of solo artists John Gentry, Kenny Yoon, Kevin Rolston, and Armando McLean.
It's going to be a wonderful conversation. There's going to be all new solo performances in these 5-minute nuggets that you saw tonight. Join us.
Good night, everyone. Thank you
Good night,
so much. See you Thursday.